weather looks nice today, and it looks like we should stick around for tomorrow for Canada Day anyways. And what did I read today? How about this one? It was kind of interesting in terms of a dispute, I guess, in terms of someone flying a drone and the neighbor. This one says, neighbor flew drone around woman's house to tease her dog, but she had the last laugh. As it says here, a woman was left terrified when her neighbor demanded over $900 from her after her pet dog destroyed one of his gadgets. But after seeking advice on Reddit's legal advice forum, the tables turned and the threatening neighbor was forced to pay her more than $2,000. That's kind of funny actually, going online for legal advice. Usually people would tell you not to do that anyways. It says online the woman explained that her neighbor had a habit of flying his drone low around her home to tease her pet husky, but the frustrated dog eventually managed to catch the drone. She posted, quote, earlier today my neighbor came pounding on my door, screaming obscenities and shouting at me. When I finally got to him to stop yelling, I found out that he was flying his drone in my backyard again, and this time my dog finally managed to destroy it. And she further states apparently saying, quote, he claims this was a $900 drone and I had to pay him right then and there. I refused and closed the door in his face. A couple of hours later, police showed up to retrieve the drone. I was still in my yard, but my dog completely ignored it once it stopped buzzing. The first thing I would wonder actually was whether or not the guy was filming the situation, because that would be easy to determine who was in the right and who was in the wrong, of course. It says, according to the woman, the neighbor told the police that she had refused access to her garden to retrieve the drone, but she insisted that was not true as the neighbor had never asked. The woman also added that her neighbor had a history of flying his drone low over her garden to pester her dog, which she had previously reported to police. She said, I have asked him to stop several times, which he always refuses, telling me that I don't own the air above my yard. The police didn't say he couldn't fly it in my yard, but did ask him to stop doing so in order to avoid conflict. That only seemed to egg him on. Well, it's one of those things where some people, they try to use the law on their side to do, I guess, not so good things, if this is true anyways. And it says a few weeks later, she shared an update that her neighbor had decided to drag her to small claims court over the drone issue, prompting her to seek legal advice. She detailed, my mother-in-law is a paralegal secretary, so I was able to get free consultation with a lawyer where she works to ask some questions about what to bring and how to prepare. He seemed genuinely amused that my neighbor was even trying to sue. He also suggested I countersue and how I could possibly add in more damages. The solicitor highlighted that she resided within 5 miles of an airport and that her neighbor was not only flouting the law, but might not have registered his drone for flight. It says the woman who lives in the USA contacted the Federal Aviation Administration hotline to discuss her neighbor's drone hobby and was informed that they were now looking into the matter. On the day of the court hearing, she explained that her neighbor's actions were causing her dog distress and provocation, and added that the dog could have potentially died if struck by the drone. She recounted saying, quote, I brought both police reports to courts as well as several photos of my backyard, photos of our shared high privacy fence, medical bills for my dog, and a few short videos I had of him doing flybys over my dog in the past. His main argument to the judge was that I maliciously installed a table to allow my dog to jump high enough to catch his drone, which I somehow trained him to do. Which, yes, I had recently bought a new picnic table, but only so I have somewhere to sit and eat outside. And with that, I guess she won, because it says the woman emerged victorious after countersuing her neighbor, who was then ordered to fork out more than $2,000 to cover the vet expenses for x-rays, dental exams, sedation, and medication. Following the incident where she took her dog to the vet, she added, quote, he is also banned from flying over my property, and I installed trail cams in front of my backyards just in case. He seems pretty upset with me, so I wanted to be careful. The only thing that could make this better is if the FAA finds a reason to fine him or take away his drones. So by the sounds of it, people were celebrating online about her victory, if it's true anyways, with what was written. That guy sounds like a complete jerk, but at the same time, the story just kind of interesting again with that thought on how it seems like people, they always use laws and so forth in such technical ways to attack the other person in general. Man, that's just kind of sad to think about in life in general, huh? And more news about larger drones, I guess you can say. How about this one? This one says, JCG eyes large drones for rescue operations, testing capabilities for possible implementation this year. The Japan Coast Guard will conduct its first test flight of a large drone at sea this fiscal year, aiming for the official implementation of such aircraft. The Yomiuri Shimbun has learned. Large drones are expected to be used for a wide range of JCG operations. The JCG aims to introduce the aircraft at the earliest possible date according to the sources. Large drones are light enough to be transported on land and do not require a runway to take off or land. There are many large models which can fly over the sea for several hours and are more durable than smaller drones. The JCG has already begun using US-made unmanned air vehicles. For the planned implementation of large drones, the Coast Guard may be supplied by a domestic maker instead, as Japanese companies have already developed and commercialized such products. Yeah, it makes you wonder for that too, whether or not people are going to just use drones from particular countries just due to security concerns, kind of like that story in the US where they potentially want to ban Chinese-made drones. So it's the same thing where allies, for example, they'll only use their allies' products and equipments. Actually, with this story and the previous story, funny enough, what I was thinking about is how in the future, when you have commercial drone delivery companies flying their huge drones around neighborhoods and all that close to one another, even if one neighbor didn't order anything, the other would. So would the person be able to argue later on, like with the dog example, you're giving my pet, for example, distress for flying that drone, delivering the package all the time? Would they be able to sue companies and stuff for that? All right, see you guys later.